All right, well, welcome to this Q&A. Again, I want to welcome to this Q&A. I mentioned an observation, not necessarily not necessarily a question, but it definitely leads to other things. Probably. And that is last week someone had mentioned that someone had said someone had put out there that I had said that a conservative conversion is okay. So obviously, anyone who really knows me knows obviously that's it's not the truth. I put up my video there, clarified why reform and conservative conversions are bogus, and then um, got a little bit of mussar from uh, from the admin of this group, basically saying, you can't badmouth other groups, other Jewish groups, and say what they do is wrong, and all that. So my comment is, first of all, I answer the question there because I still somewhat of a, reputation. So, in the very near future, have my own TV network. That's not going to matter because ain't no one going to censor me because I'll be in charge. In any case, we got what to look forward to. But in any case, I put up a video there, right? Put up a video there clarifying this is a video from a number of years ago, right? Which, obviously some people didn't like because I went on a rant for about 40 minutes. And, I always say, if I yell and scream, just turn down the volume. If I speak too fast, so do it in half speed, right? But I want to make one point, right? I want to make one point, and the only point here is that, people don't want to get offended, right? They don't want, so let's say better. They don't want people to offend other people. Okay, right? They don't want to, like walking on eggshells, right? Say something negative, you know. Yeah, not that it's Lashon Hara, right? See, that I wasn't accused of, right? I would have answered that also, right? But, that would be the obvious thing. How can you speak so badly against, these type of Jews? Yeah, because they deny God. Yeah, it doesn't matter what they know or what they don't know. I can say whatever I want against them. If they're intermarried, even better, right? Then, there's no problem. Say whatever I want. Whether you should or not is a different issue, but you could. It's not a problem, right? Hofetz Chaim says you can embarrass them in public. I mean, probably take away their livelihood also. I mean, it's pretty severe, what people do. So therefore, we're living, in a woke culture. People shouldn't speak up. You know, the president of the United States, whether you like him or not, it doesn't really matter, right? But for someone to sign saying there are only two genders, and to sign legislation saying that bona fide men dressed as women cannot compete in women's sports. Like, you have to go that far? You have to go that far? Nobody knows who they are today? It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So now you speak out against that. Oh, you're anti-binary people. You're anti this and you're anti that. So I made it very clear to someone, that certain things obviously they don't like about Judaism, and so I said, well, maybe the Torah is anti-pork. Maybe the Torah is anti, intermarriage. Maybe the Torah is anti a lot of things. So it could be, we may have an image problem, but again, if you believe the Torah is true, let's make very clear. If you believe the Torah is true, you can't sit back. You cannot sit back. Now, when you should come out against people, okay, that's another issue, right? I don't make a habit of doing that. I will if I have to, right? But sometimes you have to say something. Yeah, my Rebbe is very big on that, making protests and this and that, but you have to know when and where, etc. Some people say that's not the way. You're right. Maybe it isn't. Maybe for most rabbinic authorities or Torah giants, maybe that's not the way, right? But at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to say things no matter what, right? I'll give one example. Someone, after my Rebbe gave class one, someone came and asked the following question. He said it's going to be a gay parade. It's going to go right by the yeshiva he learns it. Yeah. So he said, what should we do? So my Rebbe said, you shouldn't be out there handing out toffees. That's one thing. He said, you should be out there protesting. Now, what did he mean? He said, don't engage them. Go out there, say to them, whatever, learn out there, but show you're saying what they're doing is wrong. Yeah, without engaging. Now, people would say, even if you do that, these people aren't going to change. Right? Let's say they're not going to change. That's not even the point. The point is you have to show it's wrong. You have to show it's wrong. Right? My Rebbe would say if they're prancing around and marching in the heart of the Jewish people in Jerusalem. Walking distance with the holiest place in the world, the Western Wall. No one says anything. Everybody's quiet, even if no one's going to listen. So I asked him once, he had said back in the day, there were all these Russians that were coming to Israel in the law of return, right? So over the years, more than 1 million Russians, and most of them not Jewish, vast majority not Jewish. So my Rebbe made a whole protest against it, and I asked him, I said, do you think it did anything? Do you think that protest is going to change anything? Now he had mentioned that there were ultra-Orthodox Jews in the Ministry of Interior, and they knew all these Russians coming in weren't Jewish. They didn't say anything. I don't know if they didn't say anything, they couldn't say anything, whatever it was. They didn't do anything. But it's a known thing. Former chief Sephardic rabbi, of Israel, David Yosef, said this. And all these Russians that aren't Jewish said it a few years ago. They want to put him in jail for blasphemy, against the government, like insurrection against the government. Yeah. So he said, you can do that and you can say whatever you want, but you want to know where the information came from? I have no problem showing you where the information came from. So he said, you want to know where the information came from? So I'll tell you. It's called the Jerusalem Bureau of Statistics. It's your own information. What are you condemning me saying the vast majority, of these Russians came in and aren't Jewish? It's your own statistics. It's your own information. Now we understand why they brought them in. I mean, there are plenty of political figures that said, they said publicly, we're doing this to offset the ultra-Orthodox. So you have all these non-Jews coming in. And obviously they're going to vote for the left, right? So anyway, with all that, nobody said anything. So Rabbi made a protest. So I said, you had 1,000 people there, 2,000 people there, whatever it was. So I asked him, do you really think it did anything? Do you really think protesting did it? I asked him. He said, it doesn't matter. And the reason is because I'm not going to get upstairs after 120 years. And God's going to say, why didn't you protest? Why didn't at least you show that there was something wrong with this? Victor Miller, blessed memory, a number of weeks ago, in his weekly parsha sheet that they put out from his tapes, that, he was talking about, what was going on in Egypt. And he compared that to the Holocaust. And one of the things he said, and again, he's not saying this is the reason that the Holocaust happened. But he said that in so many cities, in Russia and Poland and whatever, people desecrating Shabbos like crazy. People were, becoming communists, and all this. A lot of people going off. He said he didn't hear anybody protest. Nobody said anything. Nobody showed any defiance to say that what they're doing is wrong. Now, simple answer could be, why they didn't, because I could do anything. Because if you give Musar ethics to somebody and they don't listen, so what's it worth? So you can say propaganda never goes to waste. Okay. Others would say that's not what we do. We have to be stronger in our observance, try and draw people closer. Very good. But at the end of the day, says Victor Miller, all these things were going on. Nobody said anything. More than 80% intermarriage, in Germany itself. Nobody says anything. Doesn't matter, people make the mistake and think, well, if someone's not going to listen, there's no mitzvah to do it. So in some cases, that's true. In some cases. But this is a very complex thing. People throw this idea around like, it applies in all cases. Not true. It's a very complicated thing. But anyway, my Rabbi said, I'm not going to get upstairs and God's going to say, why don't you say something? My holy city. My holy city, you don't say anything. You say nothing. Doesn't matter if no one's going to listen. You got to show it's wrong. You got to put your foot down. You got to have a backbone. See, so today, in the workforce and other things, it's harder because they get a lot of power. You can lose your job, you say something. Right? Okay. Nonetheless, this question comes up a lot. Person works for a company or whatever, and a worker there was getting married. They invite you to the wedding. Like they're expecting you to come to the wedding. Can you say Mazel Tov? No. I mean, you gotta be a little diplomatic, right? But you can't go. Can you chip in for a gift? No. These are easy questions. Yeah. But you can't do it. Even as a non-Jew, you shouldn't do it. Because you're giving credence to something that's wrong. And this is the whole thing, Obama put in, same-sex marriages. One of the great things he did before leaving office, besides giving all this money to Iran. But okay. So imagine, there's the whole case. Two guys come in, want to get married, come to a county clerk. They want them to, push the papers, and they refuse. They don't believe in this. That's your job, right? No matter who comes in, people want to get married. This is what you do. You give them the form, tell them to fill out the forms, right? But what if they're doing an abomination? This act is an abomination. Okay, they're not married yet. Whatever, doesn't matter. Keep in mind, the Medrash says that any country, any state, any place that sanctions same-sex marriages with a ksuva, with a marriage document, a binding marriage document, that place has no kiyum. What does it mean it has no kiyum? It will be destroyed. Literally, it won't be established. What does it mean it won't be established? It'll be destroyed. So how can you give credence to something like that? How can you be a floor if someone comes in, same-sex marriage, they want all these bouquets? These are questions. Yeah. Do you have the right to say to someone, go elsewhere? They could sue you. Say, I want your flowers. You have the best flowers in town. Because, technically they could probably sue you. So listen, you have to serve everybody. Right? These were cases came up. This case with a florist, case with a bakery, cake baker, whatever, and a county clerk. A person may have to, if they say, listen, if you don't do this, you're going to lose your job. You have to lose your job. The Chofetz Chaim says the laws of Lashon Hara, right? Even if a person, let's say, knows information they can't give over because it's Lashon Hara. The Chofetz Chaim says even if you're threatened to lose your job, you have to lose your job. You cannot give over that information. You say it's pikuach nefesh, saving your life. How are you going to make money? So you find another job. Market's very tight. Doesn't matter. God will take care of you. You're standing up for Torah. You never lose. Right? But the Chofetz Chaim states clear, even if your boss is pressuring you and he needs that information, he says, listen, if you don't give me that information, you're going to find another job. You have to find another job. Torah's not a joke here. There are times that, you may have to sacrifice in order to stand up for Torah. It's a test. It's a test. And there are a lot of people, when it came to, sanctifying God's name, right? Kiss the cross or die, so to speak. So a Jew has to give up their life for any time, any place. If it's idolatry, they say, bow down to the short little fat guy, Mr. Buddha himself, right? Big mitzvah to make fun of idolatry. They say, hey, bow down to fatso or die. You have to be willing to die. Now, what if you don't? What if you do it anyway? So you transgress the Torah prohibition of not sanctifying God's name. It's a Torah prohibition. Torah prohibition. Now, I say a person's afraid. They don't want to die. It's not a question whether you want to or not. The issue is what's your obligation. Comes on the end of Gemara and Brachos, comes along Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said, I was always bothered by this verse, and the Shema, it says, you love the Lord your God, right? We have to ask Hashem Elokecha, b'kol levavcha, with all your heart, b'kol nafshecha, with all your soul, b'kol meodecha, with all your might, strength, money, however you want to translate it. Let's go back to b'kol nafshecha. Yeah, b'kol nafshecha means with all your soul. Comes along Rabbi Akiva, and he says, the waiting to sanctify God's name, to die sanctifying His name. That b'chol nafshecha means you have to give up your life. Literally, you have to give up your life. They got caught by the Romans, and they were going to kill him, and he was giving a sermon to his students, as they're killing him, and the student said, Rebbe Ad Khan, this is what it means. This is what the verse means. B'chol nafshecha, with all your soul. He says, yeah, I was always bothered by this verse, and I was waiting to sanctify God's name. Now I got the opportunity. And then he said, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. He died, and there's a Basco heavenly voice said, Rabbi Kiva is welcome in the next world. Rabbi Kiva is Mucha and Mezuman to the next world, to Olam Haba. So, a lot of questions on this story, but not everyone agreed with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said you should be waiting to be able to sanctify God's name. Right? Others said you'll sanctify God's name when you have to. If you have to. Not that we should be looking forward to do it. If it comes to a time where you'd have to do that. For a Jew, bow down or die, you have to be willing to die. Now it's a big test. Some people weren't willing to stand up to the test. They transgressed the Torah prohibition. And that Torah prohibition is, in that case, you got to sanctify God's name. Anytime, any place. The other two things you have to sanctify God's name anytime, any place, right, is immorality or murder. So if a Jew or non-Jew would say, kill this person, we're going to kill you. You have to be willing to die. Mishnah talks of a case. Mishnah says that, if they say, okay, there's a whole group of Jews there. They say, send out, this Jew. They know who it was. Send out this Jew did this and that. Now, they knew who it was. They're not allowed to hand him over. Now, even if they say, hand him over or you're all going to die, you're going to say, well, who says his blood is redder than mine? Right? So maybe you can turn him over. Well, first of all, you don't know if they're not going to kill you anyway. They could be lying. But even so, you're not allowed to turn them over. Everybody has to be willing to die. Yeah. So Nobody wants to go through this. But if it happens, that's all. That's what you have to do. They have to be willing to die. Now, sometimes we've had cases in history where instead of being abused by the enemy, they kill themselves. Story of 400 children, after the destruction of the temple, being taken to Rome, right, on a boat. They understood what was going to be done to them. They all jumped overboard and drowned. People on top of Masada, same thing. They killed themselves before, they were going to get abused also. So, in that case, it's suicide. So the question is, could a person commit suicide rather than being abused? So it should come out that, let's say a woman, God forbid, is going to be raped, right? They're going to rape her and she decides she jumps off a cliff or whatever. They're going to be called suicide? Knowing that she's going to be abused? No. We're not going to look at it that way. I'm oversimplifying, but it's a little more complicated than that. But in the end, we, the Jewish people, have to be willing to sacrifice for God when it occurs. Yeah, if you got an obligation to do it, you have to do it. And if you don't, you say, I'd rather save my life, so I'll kiss the cross even though it doesn't mean anything to me. Even if you have negative intentions, still forbidden. That's why you serve it. Right? The 4 different ways to serve idolatry. One of them is bowing to it. One of them is sacrificing to it. Right? Those are, a couple of things. Sacrificing, worshiping it in other ways also. Yeah? So that's the way to worship it, even if you have no intention. You have negative intention, doesn't matter. The story of the Gemara says, it's a certain, a certain idol, they defecated in front of it. Yeah, so what did some people do? They took number 2 and smeared it. They smeared it all over the idol to make fun of it. Yeah, so to make fun of it. So they thought they're doing a good thing. Right? They're making fun of it. Wow, never saw anyone serve the idol like that, whatever. It was held against them. So it doesn't matter what your intention is. If that's the way you sacrifice, right? If that's let's say better. If that's the way they worship this, whatever it was, then you can't do it. You can't do it the same way. It doesn't matter what your intention is. So what would happen? Right? The question comes up, what would happen? Person had $100 bill or whatever, a lot of money, and it fell in front of the idol. Wind came, knocked out of your pocket, whatever. It's right in front of the idol. How do you pick it up? You say you shouldn't be allowed to pick it up. Why? Because you have to bend down to pick it up. Very good. Right? So it should be forbidden. How do you get out of it? How do you get out of the problem? So you do it backwards. You turn your back to the idol, you bend down to pick it up. Because that's not the way you worship it. So any way that was worshipped in general, even if it's a disgusting thing and you have negative intention, does not matter. Does not matter. That is called idolatry. Bottom line. Right? So what does God want with all this? He wants a person to be strong. Right? He wants a person, if they have to be able to sacrifice themselves for him. Because otherwise it's desecration of God's name. Maybe not in the literal sense. Right? It's got to be done in front of 10 Jews, but in general. There are people, there are secular people that say, well, there are certain things I wouldn't do. Yeah. I just couldn't bear myself to do it. Why not? Right? I'll give an example. A person, likes his non-Jew. Say, I'm so sorry. You're such a great person, but I can't marry you. Why? Because it's just something, my heart tells me I can't do. I don't know. What's the problem? If you don't really believe in Torah, and you don't believe in mitzvahs, what's the problem? It'll break my parents' heart. Okay, you probably do other things to break your parents' heart, but what's the one? Right? In other words, person would be willing to give up the person, probably, they may say, maybe destined for them. And it'd be a great marriage and everything else. Very good. What's the problem? God says no. So it's not about, being racist. No offense. Any non-Jews listening, it has nothing to do with it. God said you can't do it, period. I called someone a racist once because of this. A secular Jew. And, about intermarriage. So I said, if you say that, a Jew's not allowed to marry a non-Jew, that's racist. After back and forth, they say, well, you also believe Jews shouldn't marry non-Jews. Very good. They said, why aren't you a racist? So I said, very simple, because the Torah tells me. The Torah says you can't. A number of times. So you can say, well, maybe the Torah's racist. Maybe. But if you had, think about it in practical terms. If a lot of people, let's say half, the statistics are higher, but let's say half the Jewish people would marry non-Jews. Forget about, reform conversions, whatever, or any of these type of conversions. Let's say no conversions. They marry a non-Jew. So if it's a Jewish woman, the kid's still Jewish. Okay. Right? If it's a guy, the kid's not Jewish. Now, let's say half the Jewish people intermarry. That is a recipe for disaster. The recipe for disaster. And we see what's going on. We see exactly what's going on. So you want to say, oh, against non-Jews, this and that. Judaism will not survive. There's no possible way. If half the people or more are part of your congregation, even if they go, are non-Jews, how is that good for Judaism? Well, they can do whatever they want. Who says Judaism should survive? I don't know. Did you read the Bible? You see what it says from Genesis to the book of Deuteronomy? Many, many times God says to Moses, this is forever. I always emphasize that when we're going through it. Forever means it doesn't change. Right? Let's think about that. It doesn't change. Forever means forever. So the Jewish people obviously are supposed to survive. Now, it could be it's only going to be a remnant left, maybe. You only have 10% that are religious, everyone else intermarried. Right? So you got 13.5 million Jews, big trouble. Serious trouble. Right? But it's probably less than 13.5 million because a lot of the men intermarry. So, I don't know what the real numbers are. But even so, if you want to say we discriminate against non-Jews, right? Even if a person wants to say that we shouldn't marry non-Jews. But it's to our benefit. So, no offense to non-Jews, they can marry Jews. It's not a problem for them. That's not putting a stumbling block in front of them. Right? That's not their issue. It's a Jew's issue. Jew absolutely has an issue. But if Judaism is supposed to survive, which is pretty clear, according to Torah it is, and you have 50% or more intermarrying, that's just a disaster. No matter how you slice it, it's a disaster. It will not perpetuate if the statistics go higher. It just won't. You have a small percentage of Jews left that are keeping Torah. That's it. Everyone else will disappear. Right? That's just the way it is. Right? So there are times, right, as we said, there are times you got to say, this is wrong. So I go, that's your opinion. Okay. Yeah. So it's my opinion. Right? So it's my opinion, but my opinion goes back to, goes with the Torah and goes back, 3,500 years. So that opinion is based on a lot of things. A lot of rhetoric is based on a lot of law. It's not just like a flippant thing. It's like, I believe, right? It's based on knowledge. But practically speaking, this is a disaster. People afraid to say anything? Yeah. People afraid of their own shadow. They don't want to offend anyone. God forbid you should offend anyone. So again, what's the bottom line? What's the bottom line? Is the Torah true or it's not true? Right? If it's true or not true. If it's not true, okay, so make it up as you go along. And if you can't pass it down, it's a disaster. Right? Total disaster. Now, I would think a lot of these things are common sense. They should be common sense. I mean, two genders is common sense. No matter what anyone says, it's common sense. Men dressed up as women playing women's sports is common sense. Any diehard sportsman would say that's crazy. If they were really into sports, they'd say it's nuts. You can't do that. So what happened to common sense? Why does common sense go out the window? Because people have an agenda. People hear what they want to hear. They do what they want to do. Okay, don't call it Torah. If you don't call it Torah, I don't care. You call it something else. Call it Torah made my own mind. But you have a whole society trying to brainwash people. They say, we're trying to do that, Halavai. Halavai should be successful. But when you're trying to convince, third graders, fourth graders or less, maybe they're the wrong body. Why is that not brainwashing? No, it's not brainwashing, it's education. Making them feel maybe who they are or who they aren't, or that's insane. But yeah, might have to take a stand. There are people who say, "Oh, that's interesting, but I have this opinion." Okay, you can argue. You can argue with people, but no one's opinion is really that strong. They may say it very strong, but what's it based on? What's it based on? So there are times, you gotta stick up for Torah. You gotta say what's right, and it could cost you, right? It could cost you. Lashon hara, you can't say you might lose your job. Okay, so you find another job. No one says it's easy. Look what happened. People came from Europe. People came from Europe to America. What was the hardest thing? What was the hardest thing for them? The hardest thing for them was work. And the reason is because they had to work on Shabbos. So they said, if you don't work on Shabbos, don't come back on Monday. And there are a lot of people, they had it very hard. But the ones that stayed very strong, they made very strong families. Kids went in that direction. That's a big test, right? That is a huge test, right? There's no, there's no question. There's absolutely no question. So, who wants to, who wants to try and find a new job every week? Makes life impossible. Seemingly impossible. Person, there were many people, went to synagogue on Shabbos and went to work. Say it's a contradiction in terms. Again, we can't judge unless someone's been in that same situation. Right? You can't judge someone unless you've been in their shoes. Very good. It's a big test. It's a very, very big test. Right? Someone there says, Talmud Shabbos 31a, Yevamos 47a and b, conversion process much easier than today. Okay. So let's say like this. Let's say that, if you teach, the Gemara says, you teach them a little bit of the stringencies, a little bit about the leniencies. So who says you have to learn everything? Right? So you learn a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Very good. Now let me ask. If you learned a little bit about the laws of Shabbos, use Shabbos as an example. Right? You learn a little bit of the laws of Shabbos. So let's say you have a little bit of other knowledge. Rabbinical court converts you. Now, come Shabbos, you do all kinds of things that could very well be Torah prohibitions. Now, if you only learn a little bit here, a little bit there, then how in the world are you not going to transgress serious prohibitions? So you tell me 500 years ago, I heard someone say this, you could have learned Torah by osmosis. You need someone to teach you could learn it. Maybe. And you want to say back in the time, time of Talmud, 2,000 years ago, or more. So you're talking different times. But, how much could if a person doesn't learn basics,
What?
the
What?
basics. I said if they don't learn the basics, right, what's going to happen? What is going to happen?
What do you mean?
One second. So what's gonna happen? A person won't know what to do, right? They won't know what to do. So Rabbi Eger says you teach them a little bit. So I ask this question: if they teach them a little bit, how much are they really going to know? If they know the basics enough, where they're not going to come to definite Torah prohibitions, right? Seemingly they know what they're doing, in many ways. Okay, I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue, right? But I would say that you're right. The Gemara says you only teach them a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And even if a person didn't know the laws of Shabbos, they can still be converted, but that's already after the fact. When the Gemara says there was a case where someone didn't even know about Shabbos when they converted. Very good. It's a good conversion. Good conversion. But they didn't know about Shabbos. Basic thing. Very good. So now they have to learn about Shabbos. But that's only after the fact. Let's make clear. That's not what we're striving for. The person can say the rabbis added all these laws and everything else. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. There's a lot to learn. And if you don't know the basics about Shabbos, you will transgress. That's exactly what the Chofetz Chaim says in his introduction, right, to the third part of its commentary is the commentary called the Mishnah Berurah. And he says in the introduction, there are a lot of laws. A lot of laws and laws of Shabbos. If you don't review, you'll transgress. Now, he's not cursing anyone. He's telling you. There are a lot of laws. This is what you have to know. It's not a benefit. See, this is a mistake people make. It's not a benefit to do it quicker. I'm not saying it has to take years and years. It's not a benefit. Someone comes in 2-3 months, say, okay, I have basic knowledge of this thing. Let's say they convert. Let's say. What's the benefit here? They now have the status of an Orthodox Jew. Good. Yeah. Now, every single Shabbos is going to make mistakes. They can make serious mistakes. Transgress Torah prohibitions. What's the benefit? Even if you tell me the process was easier back in the day, okay. But today people know a lot less. Heck of a lot less. There's no benefit to convert someone earlier. There are certain circumstances, I would say, maybe you could. Depends what the circumstances are. I'm not saying it has to take 5 years. But a person has to have some level of knowledge. And if they don't have a certain level of knowledge, they shouldn't convert you because they get the responsibility of the rabbinical court. And if a person messes up, they get responsibility as well. Because they converted someone who wasn't ready to convert. And I hear sometimes people ask questions, and they say, I've been learning for so long in this answer, why don't you have it down? Why don't you have it down? I'm not saying you got to remember every last detail. Okay. So you make mistakes here and there. Make them now. But that's why non-Jews, the Gemara said, you're going to quote the Gemara in Yevamot, so let's quote it further. Right? The Gemara later that says, why non-Jews get so punished after conversion? Why they get tossed around like a rag doll makes it harder. What's the answer? Because they didn't learn what they were supposed to properly. So, but then we have to learn a little bit. It doesn't seem like a contradiction. So even the little they learned, they didn't learn well. Simple answer. They didn't learn it well. There are things you have to know, period. You have to know what to do. It's not a guessing game. It's not like, well, I got it wrong. But you're going to say, wow, there's repentance. Good. There is repentance. If you made a mistake. But there are people out there, I guarantee, they don't even know they're making a mistake unless someone points it out to them. Now, if you know you made a mistake or you have a doubt whether you made a mistake, good, you can find out. You can find out if you did or not. But again, what's the benefits? What's the benefit of converting quicker? If you have the knowledge and everything else, good. If not, you're going to pay a serious price afterwards. It's not worth it. Again, I'm not saying it has to take 10 years. It doesn't have to. If a person knows, has the knowledge, they move into the community, it shouldn't take that long. It should take maybe another year if you live in a community. But if you show exceptional knowledge, they may convert you much earlier. They're going to say, but it's impossible to know everything. It's not true. Not impossible. But you have to, you have to go through it. And you have to know it well. And if you don't review it, you'll forget it. Right? So sometimes, I get people ask questions. I'm like, you should know this already. If it's something confusing, you didn't get it down, okay. I'll cut some people some slack. If it's something that I would think is very basic, that's something you should know. Shouldn't even ask the question. Should already have the knowledge. Now, are we robots? No. We're not robots. It's a lot of information. There's a ton of information. Right? So there's a ton of information. But you have to review it. If you don't review it, you won't remember it. But you have to live it also. So the more you live it, the more you remember. And when you make a mistake, you know the mistake you made. You shouldn't make the same mistake twice. Yeah, you'll say they learned just like any Jew has to learn. You're right. But they have an advantage. Right? If it's a religious Jew, he grew up with it, so he knows it. Or he should know it. Somebody's gonna know everything on the back of his hand. You gotta look up things and forget things. That's true. That's true. So if you're going, so someone asks, if you go in the right direction, very good. Yeah, you won't have the compassion. Not a question of compassion. That's not the question. Not an issue of compassion. You're going in the right direction, that's good. But if a person let's say, let's speak about conversion. If a person goes, the rabbinical court converts them before they should. It's bad for the rabbinical court as well, because they get responsibility. They converted someone they shouldn't have converted. Now, there are rabbinical courts, I will tell you, that they convert people that they shouldn't. They don't convert people they should. It goes both ways. I'm not saying by every rabbinical court, in every case. But there are people that, they should wait. See, see if they have the requisite knowledge or not. There could be certain circumstances. You would convert them earlier. Okay. Even if they don't have the, requisite knowledge for a number of things. But that doesn't matter. I'm not talking about that. You got to show a certain level of knowledge. And I'll tell you the truth. If someone does not know how to use a hot plate, when to take things off, put them back on, you're allowed to, you're not allowed to. You have to hold on to it. You have to have intention. Doesn't matter if it's fully cooked or not. Can you stir it on the hot plate? There are a lot of questions. I can rattle off 20 questions right now. Yeah? But if you can't answer half of them, you don't know how to use a hot plate. If you don't know how to use a hot plate on Shabbos, you're over a Torah prohibition. You transgress Torah prohibitions of cooking. Easily. I don't have to look that hard. It's easy. It's easy. I'll give you one example. One example. Yeah, person's got children on the pot, on the hot plate. Yeah. So what do? They want to see. They want to see what's going on. They take off the top. Okay. Then what do? They stir it. They stir it. Any problem stirring it? If it's fully cooked, I don't have a problem. Yeah, you got beans. Let's say you got beans, barley, potatoes, meat. So let's say you stir it up. What could be the big deal? What could be the big deal? What if some of the barley is not cooked? But it's not even half cooked, some of it. So what do? You end up stirring it. You end up stirring it. Now you made it easier to cook. It's now going to cook faster. That's a total prohibition of cooking. Let's say you took it off the fire. Even better. If it's on the fire, worse. But if it's off the fire, still piping hot, still got the status that it's like it's on the fire until it really cools down. Well, let's say it's piping hot. You took it off. 2 minutes later, you take off the lid and you stir it up. If there are things in there not cooked, even if it's off the fire, it's also forbidden. Because that's called hastening the cooking process. This is one example. I could give countless examples. Countless examples. So if someone converts, they don't know how to use a hot plate properly. What is the advantage that they're Jewish now? I'm just talking about Shabbos. I'm not talking about kashrus. I'm not talking about blessings. I'm not talking about prayer. Right? Talking about Shabbos and festivals. Question comes up all the time by festivals. A festival, you have 2 days of a festival, right? During the week. So that means anyone outside of Israel, unless it's Rosh Hashanah here, right? In Israel. Now you gotta light candles. How are you allowed to light a candle? You gotta have a pre-existing flame. You don't have a pre-existing flame, can't light a match. Right? You have that pre-existing flame over here. And that's the difference between Shabbos and a festival. That I can cook on a festival. Well, these, and then let's say it goes into Shabbos. Then what do you do? These are questions that come up. You have a three-day festival. Festival starts on Wednesday, goes into Thursday, goes into Shabbos. Very good. Can't cook from a festival to Shabbos. Right? You need to make an Erev Tavshilin. Good. Yeah. When you light candles, when you prepare the food, these are things you have to know. These are basic things you have to know because it comes up. It happens. Right? More often than not. Right? In Israel, less of an issue. You still have to know what to do, though. In either case, you have to know what to do. So there are things people have to review. And you have to know there's no benefit. Let's repeat this. Just to make clear, there's no benefit for someone to convert. They don't know what they're doing. At some level. If they have most of the knowledge, they'll probably convert you. It doesn't mean you stop your education. That means you still have to know what to do. But now you're a Jew. Now it's all for real. Yeah, it's not all make-believe now. It's for real. And then you're going to get judged. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? And then a person says all these things are going wrong in their life. So the Gemara says, why? Why are things going wrong? Because you didn't learn what you're supposed to properly. It's no advantage to do it quicker. Unless certain circumstances. But there's no advantage. If a person has the knowledge, they live in a community, so let them convert. If they have certain knowledge. But you have to have the knowledge. And you have to get the knowledge. Yeah, and it doesn't matter. There's so many laws to learn in the rabbi. Forget it. That's what you have to do, period. That's what you got to do. You don't want to do it, don't do it. Person thinks it's too hard, whatever. Okay, so you won't do it. You got to put in the time like anything else. If you don't put in the time, as the Chofetz Chaim said, you will transgress, period. It's very simple. That's why any holiday comes up, you got to review the laws of the holiday. Otherwise, you won't know what to do. But you learned them last year. Very good. You might miss something, so you review them. Interview them very quickly. You know what to do. Good. Review's always good. Comes to Passover, 30 days you start learning the laws of Passover before the holiday. Starting next week. I've already started. Yeah, I started last week already. So, whatever, there are a lot of laws, a lot of things you got to get done. It's complicated, The more complicated the laws of the holiday, the more you have to learn it. Sukkah's a lot of laws to learn. about the sukkah, about the lulav, about the Ezra. There are things you got to know. When do you make a blessing in the sukkah? These are things you have to know. So if you know them, good, but you still have to review. People don't like to review. It's not so much fun to review. You say, I want to learn new things. Good. But you got to get done things you know well. I saw, what I consider a novelty, learning path of the just, right? So the Ramchal there says that you want to fix up bad character traits, right? That's what we're in the world for, as Vilna Gaon says. Rav Elijah Vilna more than 250 years ago. We're in this world to fix up bad character traits. Says the Ramchal there in Path of the Just, you know what? It's also good. It's also good to review and work on things you're good at. Now, I never would have said that. Right? That's the difference between the Ramchal and me. Big difference. But why would I never said that? I would say you got things to work on. You got certain bad character traits, whatever they are. Good. So you work on the bad character traits. That I get. Right? That I get. But to also work on things you're good at, why? Why do you have to work on things you're good at? You're already good at it. So I would say you don't have to do that. Maybe a little bit. Right? Give a sports parable. You got a basketball player, right? He's got to work on defense. His defense is not so good, right? But his offense is spectacular, right? So you're going to say he never has to work on his offense? I would say he probably doesn't. Practice a little bit, maybe. But no, it goes further than that. You want to perfect it. So there are no weaknesses there. Yeah. What are you going to focus on more? Probably on defense. Okay. But you still have to focus on offense. Because if you don't focus on offense, it may atrophy. Maybe. You become sloppy, this and that. So you're going to perfect that also. But you're going to make it better. I never would have said that. I wouldn't have said that. I would have said you focus on what you're bad at. Right? That's going to be your main focus. And the other thing, okay, whatever you're good at, you focus on a little bit. No. Says the Ramchal, the opposite. Right? What does the Ramchal say? You got to focus on the good also. Because you want to perfect the good. You want to perfect it. Not just that it's good. You want to make it excellent. You want to make it spectacular. You want to make it the best things in sliced cheese. But I wouldn't have said that. I would have said to practice a little bit. Back in the day, I could handle the ball, dribble, this and that, doing things behind my back and other things. Yeah, that I couldn't do. Right? Or other things that I couldn't do. That's the focus. Because you don't want to get burnt. You don't want to go, someone run right past you and you're not ready, or, whatever. You got to prepare. So on things you're not good at, you prepare more. Good. But things I'm good at? Things I'm good at, I have to perfect even more. Makes sense? Right? When I saw that Ramchal, I said, wait a minute. Why? Stop me dead in my tracks. Because I would have said you focus on things you're bad at. Okay. That's your main focus. But he threw in, you got to focus on the good. Why? Why would you have to focus on the good? Not that it comes at the expense of the bad. But you got to focus on the good to perfect the good. Yeah, so you spend less time maybe perfecting the good, but you don't just leave the good. You don't just say, oh, I'm just going to rest on my laurels. I had a 40-inch vertical leap back in the day, so, I don't have to work on that. I have to work on leg strength or whatever, even though I never had 40-inch vertical leap, but it doesn't matter. Right? Doesn't matter. Unless someone throws me in the air, maybe. Right? But, it's not going to happen. So things you're good at, you want to make better. Things, obviously, you're not good at, okay, you have to work harder at. Because you're not going to work harder at things you're good at. Nobody's going to do that. Yeah? But you're going to work on it to make sure you keep it. And you work at it to perfect it. But if you have a lot of imperfections on the other side, that you got to spend more time. Right? That's no question. Yeah. Let me see here. Someone asks, One second. Let me get back here. Someone asked, to what extent does the commandment to honor parents extend? To the point where adult children cannot make their own decisions? No. Cannot lead their own lives because they are in their care. If a person is lives at home, let's say, they're under their parents' care, right? So you got to be careful. You have an obligation to respect them. Now, if they're evil, good question, right? So honoring them, you wouldn't have to do, most likely, right? Honoring you wouldn't have to, like, if they walk in a room at least twice a day, you'd have to stand up for them. That you probably wouldn't have to do. Respect, you can't embarrass them in public, even if they deserve it. You can't talk back to them. I mean, it's a hard test, even if they say negative things, right? There's a difference of opinion between the Rambam and the Torah. The Torah is the son of the Rosh, Rabbeinu Hashem, and almost 1,000 years ago, a little less than 1,000 years ago. Difference of opinion whether if the parent is evil, would they have an obligation to honor them? Yeah? You have the Rambam against the Torah. You're talking heavyweights here, back in the day. And still today, major heavyweights comes to Jewish law. The mind-boggling thing to say, if they're evil, you have an obligation to honor them. Honor them means you have to stand up for them when they walk in a room if they're still alive. You can't sit in their seats unless they allow you. Right? Certain things you have to do for honor. You can say if they're evil? Yeah, it's a good question. We're not going there, but it's a good question. Yeah. So I would say honor you don't have. Respect? You still have a certain level of respect. Now, what if the relationship's toxic? Relationship is toxic. Okay, so then you minimize the relationship. Stay at a distance. So now the question is, okay, to what extent is commandment to honor parents extend to the point where adult children cannot make their own decisions? Right? Now, it depends why they can't make their own decisions. They're mentally challenged. Okay. Let's say they're not mentally challenged. They're living at home. They're under the parents' care. Okay. So if they live at home, they have to honor parents. They have to respect them. Right? If they're evil, they don't have to. Now, the parents are going to make decisions for them. Now, it depends how old they are. If I would say if a child, is in their 20s, sometimes, you got to let them live their lives. You have to have ground rules. What they can do, what they can't do. A person that's a child, you don't want them coming in all hours of the night. You have to set ground rules. Right? But sometimes certain things you can't do. I mean, the kid has an obligation to the parents, no question. Because the parents helping them. They have an obligation. They have an obligation to listen to them. Now, what if there are negative implications? Parent wants them to do something that goes against Torah. That's a different issue. So the respect that a child has to have, they have to have respect. And they can say, but I think, the Torah says something different. Parent wants a child to desecrate Shabbos. You can't do that. It's forbidden. The best respect you can do for a parent is not to desecrate Shabbos. But a parent could say, you have an obligation to listen to me. Isn't that one of the 10 commandments? Right? Anyone hear that? It's one of the 10 commandments. You have an obligation to listen to me. Okay. If it's in the realm of Torah, and what you're telling me is true, okay. Depends what it is. If you're telling me you got an obligation, to eat treif, that's a different issue. You have an obligation to desecrate Shabbos, right? You have an obligation to desecrate Shabbos because I said so. So when a parent says that, what are they going to say? Well, honoring parents is one of the 10 commandments. You're right. And right after that is can't desecrate Shabbos. You have to keep Shabbos. So which one's more important? So the Torah says the juxtaposition of verses, right? The building of the tabernacle, right? And the book of Exodus, I think it's Exodus chapter 37. You get all these commands of building the tabernacle and the loops and the boards and clasps and all that. Then it says keep Shabbos. Now, what would the obvious question be? Of course I know to keep Shabbos. Right? You already told me in Exodus chapter 20. You already told me in Exodus chapter 19. Right? So the rabbis learn out the juxtaposition of verses. And therefore, anything that was done in the tabernacle, that it doesn't supersede Shabbos. Now, there's also a command to honor parents, also given in the Ten Commandments. But then it says, don't desecrate Shabbos. So there, again, juxtaposition of verses, right? So Rashi there says on the spot, if a parent says desecrate Shabbos, you don't listen to them. It's a mitzvah not to listen to them. It's an obligation not to listen to them. Yeah. So if they so back in this case, if they live at home, they're adult children. Now they can make their own decisions, unless they're incapable of making their own decisions. They can make their own decision. What if it goes against the parents' wishes? So then it depends. Depends what it is. In religious terms, let's say a son wants to grow payas, long payas, wants to become Hasidic, let's say. Parents are not Hasidic. And the parents say, it makes me uncomfortable you're doing that. They have to listen. Case like that comes up. But if they can't do things on their own, so they're under the guidance of the parents. Right? If they can do things on their own, so then, there might be conflict. So it depends what it is. It depends. If a parent says, if a child is dating, let's say a child's in their 30s, and they're dating, and they're seriously interested, in a certain person to be a spouse. Parents don't like the person; they don't have to listen. They don't have an obligation to listen to the parent, right? There are certain cases they do, whatever. But even so, it's got to be done in the right way, even if you have to disagree. Right? Even if you have to disagree. Someone says some understand and try and put themselves in the kids' shoes, but that's not what parents. Parents are better than kids. This may not think so. Parents have the upper hand. They've been around a lot longer. They know. It doesn't mean they're perfect. But kids think parents don't know anything. They know absolute zero. Like they got all the answers. So parents know a lot more than the kids do. But they have to, but the verse in Proverbs says King Solomon, you have to, Chanoch nar al pi darkei. The verse says you have to educate your kids. Chanoch lenar, the child, the youth, educate them al pi darko, according to their nature. According to his nature, darko means his nature. Doesn't say darki. Doesn't say according to my nature. It says according to his nature. Right? So you have to educate them in the best way for that person. So let's say a parent wants their son to go to, to the yeshiva they went to. Their alma mater. Yeah, but the kid's not holding there. And let's say you get him in, you force him in, and the kid's miserable. You didn't help him. You wanted it for prestige. Look, my son goes to this yeshiva or whatever. But they're not holding by it. You got to educate them according to the way they need to be educated. Now, some people say, well, you got to give them the choice to, keep religion or not. No, that is false. You have to educate them the best way they can succeed to be a religious Jew, right? Start when they're younger, obviously. If not, okay, if they're older, whatever. But in general, you give them the best opportunity to succeed. Now, sometimes kids don't fit in a box. You might have to find a place that you may not necessarily approve of, per se, but it's best for them. So again, person needs guidance on this, also. But there are a lot of schools in between over the years that have come about because not everybody fits. Not everybody's a cookie cutter, right? They don't all fit the same mold. Some people didn't need to learn spatially. Some people, other things. People have learning disabilities. They have to be educated according to what they're capable of doing. But you want to give them the best chance for success. Even if it goes against what you would normally do. You want the kid at least to stay on the right path. Right? So someone here says, I also know parents who let their children make their own life. You can't convince kids what to do. And it won't work. You'll suffocate them. They need to make their own decisions. Now, sometimes it's very hard for a parent to see decisions the kids make. But you know what? They make the bed they lie in. You can, you can guide them. You can help guide them, but you can't make them drink the Kool-Aid. Meaning, they could do things that go against your grain, again, within reason. And it may be not something that you want. Question is it really detrimental? Is it going to have an effect on other kids? Right? There are a lot of different factors here. What if they're doing things that affects other kids? Yeah, that's a problem. That is a very serious problem. Right? But you never throw a child out of the house either. It's like absolute last resort. Because at least they're still under your control to a certain extent. They're still within the home. Once they go out, you have no idea what they're going to do. And if you throw them out, that's bad. That's everybody says. Everybody says it's an absolute last resort. But what do you do if they have a negative influence on their siblings? That's a problem. That is a problem. It's for sure a problem. So if they're doing things, you have to have certain guidelines. Certain ground rules. And what if a kid, let's say, they're in the room all Shabbos, they barely come out, they eat a little bit, whatever, and doing all kinds of things in the room to desecrate Shabbos. Okay, they're not doing it in public. Yeah. But if they come out and they're doing all kinds of things in public, and the other siblings see that, they're openly desecrating Shabbos, that's a problem. That is a serious problem. The person has to get good guidance on these things. But yeah, when they start doing prohibition, you're right, it's a problem. That is a problem. But sometimes I know somebody that become religious later in life. Teenage girls, they don't want any part of it. They want no part of it. So what do? You can't force them staying on Shabbos. Yeah. You can't force them to do anything. You think this is what we do. You want to come, good, but you can't force them. What happens? You have a Shabbos meal, you have guests, whatever, and they walk in because you know where they've been. It's very hard. Very, very hard. Or the other way. Kids were educated in the proper way and different things happen, they go off. Very hard to see. Very, very hard to see. Otherwise, we won't be able to find someone to live their life until parents die. Yeah, they're stuck. Yeah. Again, parents don't have that kind of influence, though. Depends on the kid. Well, once the kid's old enough, I would say, early 20s. I don't want to say late teens. I think it's still too young. But, let's say early 20s. There's some things you just have to watch. They're not going to listen. They need they need their own path. Okay, so there have to be parameters. Absolutely have to be parameters. And if they don't abide by the parameters, then, you got to sit them down and say, listen, we'll cut you some slack on this. We'll cut you some slack on this. This we're not cutting you slack on. Yeah. They can choose, at some point to move out, live with other people, whatever, with friends, whatever. Okay. But you got an obligation to your other kids and to run a normal household. You can have a kid coming in, 2, 3 in the morning, you have no idea where they are. They don't answer, whatever. It's hard. Someone asks, doesn't Havdalah have to be done to end the holiday? Yes. Yes. But what if this year, let's say Passover, is Saturday night? For everybody, it's Saturday night. Right? So now you're going to start the Seder after Shabbos. So what do you do at the Seder? You make Havdalah. While you make Kiddush, you make Havdalah at the same time. But yeah, Havdalah ends. When Havdalah ends the service, right? Ends Shabbos, or ends ends the festival. So you can have a festival go into Shabbos, but you don't make Havdalah until after Shabbos. Even if the festival's over. Technically, the festival's over. Come Friday night is Shabbos, but it's not the festival. So when you make Havdalah, you don't make it Friday night, you make it Saturday night. Or, for example, should a newly married couple live with both parents? No. Absolutely not. They need space. It used to be, save money or whatever, parents would build like a guest house for them, for a newly married couple. Best thing is they're on their own. They'll come over or whatever, but you got to give them space. Absolutely give them space. I had one child that for the first year, they lived in my neighborhood, still live in my neighborhood, but they lived like all the way across town. So like Shabbos, they wanted to come, they had to stay by us. Or, stay by the daughter, stay by their in-laws or whatever. They had space. You got to give them space. Another daughter lives in the same neighborhood, probably 5-minute walk, from my house. But like, they come when they come. I mean, they're married already 3 years. But, in general, they shouldn't live inside. That's a recipe for disaster. And they need privacy. Yeah. They'd be able just to like, hang out or whatever, like not anyone looking over the shoulder. Now we had by COVID. It's interesting. My daughter was first married. One of my daughters was first married. They lived on the other side of town. Everything was shut down. I couldn't go anywhere. So they stayed by us for like, a week or two. Before things, settled down and, things got back to normal or whatever. Okay, that was extenuating circumstances. I had a big enough place to do it, but it was extenuating circumstances. When you do that when you have to do it, but it's not certainly not the outset. I wouldn't do it. I'm not saying they have to move far away. They don't have to move far away. They can still live in the same area, but you got to give them space, right? One of my rabbis once said he told his kids, when you're married, I will never show up unannounced. I'll always call before I come. Yeah, you don't interfere, right? When I was younger, and I lived in a certain neighborhood, and people were marrying off their kids. So, a number of people gave me the same advice. They said there are two things when you marry off kids. One is you always have to have money in your pocket, and the second thing is you can't say anything. You have to watch, but you can't say anything. So I said I got two problems. I got no money in my pocket, and I got a big mouth. So so I told every one of my son-in-laws. I said when my daughter walks down that aisle, goes around you in the canopy, she's all yours. I said, I ain't getting involved. I said, absolutely not getting involved. I said, if I have to, I will. But I said, if I don't have to, nope, there's no reason. More problems are caused by interfering parents. Now, sometimes you may have to say something. Okay, but like, you do not want to get involved. They're old enough to be married, they make their own decision. That's it. You do not want to get involved. You will cause problems. 100%. Right? So, I got 3 married kids. 3 married kids right now. And whatever, I don't get involved. There's no reason for me to get involved. If I have to, I will, but like, if there's no reason you don't get involved, it causes more problems. I've read, many stories that, kids end up having serious marriage problems because parents get involved. Parents stuck their nose where it didn't belong. And that's the problem. That is, that I would say, is the olive base of marriage. One of the olive base of marriage. You parents cannot get involved. They absolutely should not get involved unless they have to. If they have to, okay. First time I ever sat in Beis Din with my Rabbi, a really nasty divorce case came in. The parents are there, grandparents are there, everyone's screaming at each other. So basically, here's what they have to say. They tell them to go outside through the back door. They bring in someone who's a marriage counselor. So I said, can you help the situation? He said, I could. There's only one problem. Both sets are getting too involved. They can't do anything. Now, the first case I sat in, I almost had like a heart attack watching this. People like, it's like People's Court. I remember People's Court back in the day. That's what it reminded me of. Like chaos, yelling, screaming, this, that, and this marriage counselor comes and says, yeah, of course I can help the situation. So if you tell both sides, both parents to keep the big mouth shut, don't get involved, I can help them. But if they get involved, they can't do anything. The kids of death. Parents do not want to be involved in the kids' mess. Let them deal with it, whatever it is. Again, rule of thumb is if you have to get involved, you get involved. Yeah, it could be dangerous situations, different things. You might have to get involved. Okay. Is that the goal? No. Should never be the goal. You're there to have them, have their kids. It should be pleasant, whatever. They ask you to advise certain things, okay? Otherwise, you know, I tell people this, they're like, you really told all your son-in-laws that? I said, yes, 100%. I told them that. I said, when my daughter walks down the aisle, she's yours. She's all yours. You get everything. You get everything. You're stuck with me also. That's it. I should get involved. Why in the world should I get involved? If it's a dangerous situation, other things going on, I'll get involved. Why should I get involved? I got my own things to deal with. I don't need to deal with that. I don't need more drama. Plenty of drama. As it is. Someone says we're allowed to mourn destruction of the temple at Tikkun Chatzos at night. We're supposed to be happy such as Purim. Nobody should be saying Tikkun Chatzos. Get up in the middle of the night, you sit on the ground, say all these, penitential prayers about destruction of the temple. Someone asked this to Rabbi Victor Miller, of blessed memory. And he said, Rabbi Victor Miller said, right before you go to sleep, sit on the ground for 5 minutes. 5 minutes! Think about destruction of the temple, and that's it. Nobody should be saying it. Yeah. Now, even if a person would say it, the whole month of Adar is supposed to be happy, very good. Right? But, so you should be able to say it. You shouldn't be able to say it, sorry. You should not be able to say it. Right? But what about a wedding? What do we do at a Jewish wedding? It's the greatest joy. Right? It's the greatest joy. Yeah. What do we do at a Jewish wedding? You break a cup. Or you break a light bulb, whatever. You break a glass. Why? Because the temple's not fully rebuilt. All the shards of glass are like, destruction of the temple. You got to remember destruction of the temple, even the greatest day of a person's life when they get married. So if that's the case, you got to remember destruction of the temple. Why not in Purim? Why not in the month of Adar, which is supposed to be a very happy month? Yeah. Is it in Shulchan Aruch? I don't know if it's in Shulchan Aruch. Even if it is, majority of people don't do it. Right? You're supposed to get up in the middle of the night and do it. Who's going to get up in the middle of the night to do it? In general. Because they were commanded to do it. Certain things you're not going to do. Right? You sit on the floor for a few minutes. There are some people that do this. I'm not going to say not. There are some people that do this. The vast majority don't. Even if it's in the code of Jewish law, very good, but a lot of people don't do it. They just don't do it. But you do know how many people decide to convert. Yes, I do. For all the right reasons, they can't move to a community or find a real Orthodox community. Okay, but you have to. Doesn't matter if it's hard. Right? I don't give a rat's tail if it's hard. You have to do it. You got to put on your bootstraps and do it. I wouldn't just do it overnight. You got to check out the community, meet people there, see what it's like, speak to people. Is that an easy thing to do? No. If you don't do it, you won't do it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You have to do it. I don't care if it's hard. That's something you have to do. Yeah. So if a person can't move, they can't move. Then they can't convert. But what are the person, if they could, and they get cold feet, it's not their personality, it's this, it's that, they're going to be slaughtered later. Because God's going to see they had the opportunity to do it, and they were just too weak. They were too weak to do it. So you say, it's not their fault. Whose fault is it? If God says you had the opportunity to do it and you didn't, you're in trouble. I'm not saying it's easy to do, but you have to do it. Doesn't matter. Right? Now, if you can't move to a community, let's say financial reasons. Yeah? It's going to take you a long time to move. Okay. But at some point, you have to. If it's not feasible, some people may not be feasible. So then you can't convert. If legitimately it's not feasible. I had students, a few years ago, 2-3 years ago. They looked at a lot of different communities. They could not, they were retired. Pretty much they could not afford to move. So they can't convert. If you can't do it, you can't do it. That's legitimate. If it's about fear, what's the community going to be like? I want to make sure I want to move to the right place. Okay. But within reason. Person wants to go to a certain community, find out about the community. Speak to people. Right? Find people to speak to. And then go see it, if possible. I wouldn't just move overnight, but that's what you have to do. Figure out where you're holding, what you want to do. Right? What type of community you want to be in, and then do it. Then eventually do it. It has to be done. If it's not done, you won't convert. Period. All right, someone asks, very good. Parents, the Christians, best thing they said you ever did was become a Jew. Okay, great. Not everyone's gonna say that. Even Jewish parents won't say that. Secular Jewish parents. Some will. Some may say that. I know someone recently that, over the years gave the kids a hard time, this and that, and they saw in the end, they said, this is the best way. This is the best way. I've had other people totally cut them off. A friend of mine I went to college with, became religious. Parents had nothing to do with him. Nothing. Cut them off financially. So in the 20s. Cut them off financially. Yeah, his father never met his wife or kids. His mother did. Okay, you say that's an extreme. I don't think it's such an extreme. People don't get it. They don't want to get it. They think you're opinionated. They think this. They think that. Why can't you just go out and eat shrimp? And what's the big deal? Why do you have to do this? And you're having too many kids, and it's money, and it's a lot of issues. A lot of issues. But I'll tell you what the bottom line is. The bottom line issue is they don't want to be inconvenienced, and they don't want to be told what they do is wrong. Even if you don't say anything, they don't want. They just want to be the way they want to be. Why can't you go to this? Why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? Makes them feel bad. I was at someone's house for something. I said, "Come on, can't you eat anything?" I was like, "I'm fine. Don't worry. It's good. I'm not going to inconvenience anyone." I could have said, "Listen, you knew I was coming. Get something kosher for me." I didn't say that. Could have said that, but that'd be a little bit presumptuous, right? They're going to change the menu for me. I wouldn't expect someone to do that. They want to get me kosher food. Good. They don't want to get me kosher food. It's also good, but don't make me feel guilty. Don't make me feel guilty. And that's a big thing. Food's a big thing. Just test people. Go to Thanksgiving, let's say, and bring your own food. Right? Now, people told me, you don't even know how true that is. We did that. People were hammering us. What's the matter? You just ate our food. We're not good enough. We're not kosher enough. You're not even Jewish yet. I mean, yeah, food's a big thing. You can't do the same things they do. Takes them off. Why can't you do this? Why are you different? Now, if you were a Sikh and dressed like a Sikh, they wouldn't even ask that question. They wouldn't even ask that question because it doesn't affect it, right? Oh, I'm not going to be a Sikh. Okay, he wants to do that. Good. You want to be an Orthodox Jew? You make me feel bad? Make me feel guilty? Yeah, that's bad. They don't have anything to do with it. Can you tell the community about me? Yeah. They may not know who I am, but whatever. Have them contact me. Other specific prayers for family that seems to not get along over generations. Say a lot of Psalms. Just say a lot of Psalms. Pray for them. In the Shemona Esrei silent meditation, you can pray for them. In general, that, things should go well and that they should be able to see your way and whatever. Just understand the Brisker Rub says I won't help. Says, Rabbi Shlomo Soloveitchik, blessed memory, says the person has to be a vessel to be able to hear the truth. If they're not a vessel to hear the truth, then the prayer is in vain. Prayer doesn't help. But not everyone holds that way. I won't be too depressing. Not everybody holds that. Not everyone holds that. You can pray for them, right? That's what you can do. Talking to them is not going to help. So you can pray. Prayer is a big thing. Prayer is a very big thing. Doesn't mean it's going to change anything, but it's a big thing. Sometimes that's all you can do. In my case, all I do is damage control. Whatever comes out of my mouth, doesn't, people aren't going to like it, but whatever. You got to do what you got to do. Get hammered along the way, this, that, but not going to change. 10 lifetimes not going to change. That's the way people are. I pray for my family every day, 3 times a day. Not on Shabbos or festivals, but 3 times a day. Anything ever change? Don't know. But, I'm not making that calculation. I'm doing what I can do. If they come back, they come back. They don't, they don't. Family can be an albatross, we always say. So you do what you can do. Right? Prayer is a big thing. You don't lose with prayer. For sure not. Yeah. Any other questions? Someone decides to ask for something I can't do it, tell them to stay away. Okay. Yeah. Listen, there are certain things, if you can't do, you can't do. try and explain it in a nice way. You might get made fun of. People may say things, but what are you going to do? Like I said, in my case, a lot of times it's damage control. Yeah, now it's not really affecting me that much. Right? I don't speak to a lot of people, but in general, when I have to, I say what I have to say. And, I know someone's going to ask, like, what about this? What about that? I'll give a quick answer because I know they don't care. And that's it. Move on. It's very shallow, but that's better that way. They're not asking serious things. They're not, okay. Yeah, listen, there's a sad reality. Right? Everyone has, their own thing they have to work on. It's like sometimes you're in your own prison. So I always say in my own case, got so many people I could potentially help, nobody wants. Okay, so what should I do? So I'll help others. Can't help myself, I'll help others. It's a sad reality, but there's nothing you can do. People can say things, I think you're backwards, I think you're this, okay. Whatever. Yeah, but we're not having serious discussions. Nobody cares. That's the bottom line. Nobody cares. But if they don't care, if they're like saying things and whatever, it shows they care. That's good. Then you can have somewhat of a dialogue, right? But if they don't care, there's no point. Like not gonna have that much to do with them anyway, right? At least they're alive. Last time I was in the States a couple of years ago, where I had a much older relative, and I just got hammered. I walked in the door, hammered. Not just in the world of truth. So, don't know, what's going on there. But, in the end, I was very cool, calm, collected. But she cared. She had spunk. She was alive. Everyone else brained it. Brained it. Yeah, I'm being nice. Yeah. So good. She had questions, issues, different things. Okay, I understood where she's coming from. Everyone else, like, nobody cares. It's not interested. Okay. They speak about other things, most things, my kids. That's what I speak about. And people gave me advice. They say, listen, when you have kids, it'll be a lot easier. It's true. 100% true. The focus wasn't on me, or my spouse. So, but that's what it is. That is what it is. And it's sad, but, what are you going to do? Sit there and wallow in self-pity? No. You do what you can do. Sometimes I wish I could do a lot more, but there's nothing to do. Can't make them drink the same Kool-Aid. I had somebody say once, oh, that's very good. I gave him like a, solid answer, whatever. Like, you say that, get off soapbox. You say that for your students in your classes. It ain't gonna work with me. Okay. I put in your place, you move on. Like, no one to talk to. So what are you supposed to do? Maybe, in God's eyes, maybe you're gonna get, slammed for it because maybe you could have done more, maybe. But there's no one to talk to, there's no one to talk to. Right? Certain people like, sometimes I think, I could have done more, should have done more. Whatever, what are you going to do? Maybe God will have a claim. I don't know. Maybe he will. And now, like, 2 out of 3 are like totally messed up in many ways. It's sad, but what are you going to do? You can't save the world. You got to worry about trying to save yourself. At the same time, you do what you can do. You try and bridge as many gaps as you can. That's what you try and do. But sometimes you just can't. What do you do if there's no one to talk to? They don't want to talk to you. Not interested in talking to you. If they're alive, they want to try and convince you have a conversation. Good. If not, it's just sad. You gotta move on. You just gotta move on with life. Yeah. Let me see any other questions. Does that mean? Since you can't get to that community, it depends. Depends where you end up. No, it depends where you go. Depends where you end up. Whatever community a person ends up in, they want to put them in contact with me. That's fine. If you're not in contact with the place now, it doesn't matter. Right? Depends where a person ends up. If you don't end up anywhere, then yeah. Then maybe, conversion might be a moot point. Could be. Very well could be. Yeah. Any other questions? Someone says visit the community first, right? That's very good advice, right? You got to see the community first for sure. Right. But I would meet people first, speak to them and then go see it. Someone here says I have to learn to shut up. Yeah. I gave up a long time ago. Right. It doesn't, there's no point. what I'm going to say, no one's going to listen to, and if they do, just going to make fun of it anyway. So it's no point. I'll answer things I have to answer. If I have to get involved, I will. If not, I'll speak about other things or do other things. Yeah, it's a sad, lonely reality. Bali Tshuva have it also, not just non-Jews. They want to convert, right? Returnees to Judaism, secular Jews become religious, can also have the same alienation. Yeah, that alienation I think is worse in many ways because these people are Jewish. Let's say they're Jewish. So it's worse because they feel bad what you're doing. Yeah, or feel guilty, whatever. So they have to let you have it. So I don't believe in that. I don't believe it. I didn't ask them. Yeah, I walked into a room. It was like going into a wolf's den. Not that I was afraid of it, but it's disconcerting. But at least this person was alive. Like if someone doesn't care and they're just like, all right, whatever. You do these crazy things and but then people are gonna hammer you and just like make fun of everything you do and everything you say. Like you have to make a decision. How valuable is this relationship? How much do you want to pursue this relationship? Here's the parents. Sometimes you just have to take a step back, speak to them, less often. Okay, that doesn't mean you're negating your obligation to honor parents if they're still alive. I'm not talking about that. But sometimes it's better to take a step back. You just have less contact. If it's, do I have to be in a toxic relationship? No. Do I need another hole in my head? I don't think so. We got enough aggravation in life. We don't need more. We don't need more. But sometimes you have no choice, right? In certain circumstances, you have no choice. Okay. But what are you supposed to do? You can't get them to drink the Kool-Aid. They're not interested. And all they do is make fun of you. Like, well, I need that. Like, I need, I don't know, another hole somewhere. I don't need it. So those relationships, some of those relationships go by the wayside. Yeah. And having conversations with people that the most important question they'll ever ask, I put mustard, ketchup, or relish on my hot dog. Like, there's nobody home, so what do you do? What do you do with these shallow relationships? So that's what they are. Just understand that's what they are. Speak about politics or not, or sports, or entertainment, or the weather, or that's it. Or your kids, even better. If you have kids, speak about your kids. There's nothing else to talk about. The most important thing you can't talk about. Can't talk about God, can't talk about religion, can't talk about what you do. Nobody cares. So they move on. Talk about other stupid things. That's what it is. Sad. It's sad, but that's the reality. And that can be, let's say better. That can be the reality. Yeah. Any other questions? Um All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, 5 o'clock Israel Time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Q&As, Ethics of Our Fathers, Book of Leviticus. You want to send me an email, chaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com, whichever good.